Go.
We're rolling. We're back, and I'm with Neal, and we're going to enjoy this August board meeting. Any comments on the July board meeting before we get started, Neal?
No, the only thing, we lost it again. Anyway, since you and I chatted last, there have been 2 more assaults, one very serious the other day. Supervisors, both elbows were broken.
Oh, they broke the elbows, huh? Jeez. Was that the one that happened on the Max platform? Guy threw him down?
Yeah, that was at Rose Quarter.
Yeah, I heard that call. So he broke his elbows, huh? Jeez. What was
both of them.
Oh, my God. Wow. So that's, he'll be out for a while. That was fair.
Yeah, they figure 6 or 8 weeks. I'm not going to say who it is.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, okay.
To keep his privacy, but I haven't seen any great response or anything on the news.
They didn't catch the guy. I heard they haven't caught him yet.
I haven't heard. I've been checking the Trimet August line, websites.
Why just keep going out? Yeah, I haven't heard anything. So, it was a fair inspection? Is that what it was?
I have no idea, no further details.
Yeah.
And quote, the other assault was just another spitting case.
Yeah. Yep, the fun just keeps on coming. I'm sure glad I'm not part of the transit worker family anymore. It's the world.
Yeah, the silence it is enough, one for each ear. One ear to hear nothing from management, and the other ear is to hear not anything from the union.
Yeah, isn't that something? Not a thing. Yeah, I know it's rather surprising, isn't it? Yeah. All right. Well, let's get started with the.
Okay. Let's go.
I'm sure they'll. Oh no, they won't talk about it here because it happened after this, right? Okay. Right. Okay.
And give you some responses, and we've got various.
I don't know why I keep losing you.
I don't know why that's happening because I'm not touching anything.
Those who are scheduled to speak have had the opportunity to sign up.
I don't know why it keeps cutting out.
Public forum opens. The comments will be taken in the order they have signed.
Looks like Warner's not here today.
Written comments have already received online or through the mail have been shared with the board, and the comment cards completed today will be forwarded to all board members and will become part of the formal public forum record. Now, the public forum
looks like Travis is growing a beard and a mustache.
Will last 45 minutes, and individual comments are limited to 3 minutes.
I don't know why it cuts off because I'm not touching anything.
After 3 minutes, certainly you can give us some written comments.
I'm not touching anything, so I don't know what's happening.
This morning we have
must be internet or something.
2 individuals signed up for public comment. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. First person is Deborah Olson, and then we also have Huey Ong. Good morning, Deborah.
Oh, there it goes out again. See, I didn't touch anything.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Deborah Olson. Good try.
My name too, Nelson.
I'm here again requesting bus service at Shattuck Way and Burnside and Gresham. Since you plan on spending $187 million for double-length buses for the division line, I'm sure you can find a way to bus transport those of us stranded at the Gresham Station Apartments senior building and the family unit off of Florence. Some of the gals have been there 10 years plus. I think Trimet is going to give us bus service in 2020. I don't think they realized that was 2 CEOs ago. No bus plans for the area we live in. The number 4 line is another 20-minute hike past the max. Time will tell if double-length buses are a good investment. Many of my neighbors can't get to the store, medical clinics.
Well, we can stop for a minute here and talk about division. And I see the division project as nothing but a gentrification capital project that really holds no benefits to citizens whatsoever. Do you agree with that?
Not only that, I mean, they have stopped this project to re-examine it and still going ahead. Have you driven down Division?
No, not in a long time.
Well, it hasn't changed much. There's not much room.
Yeah, no, I remember that. Yeah.
I mean, unless you're going to get rid of all the parking, which would affect not only businesses but residential, and it's going to prove just like the streetcar. With this express lane, what? You're going to pick up 90 seconds?
Right, exactly. They said that was only going to decrease your commute time by 15%, which is basically nothing. Okay, 15% is nothing. No, this is nothing but a pork barrel gentrification project, another project being shoved down our throats. So I don't see any value. I've looked, and I see no value. And I don't know why that keeps cutting off, Neal. I see no value to transit riders or citizens in the division project at all. Nothing. It's just going to be a huge headache for those people that are living on that road there, and the benefit is like nothing. So that's my opinion.
Even a restaurant or two. Many of us cannot wait another 15 years for broken promises from Trimet.
I don't know why that's happening
now. Very few of us are lucky enough, which means we're disabled enough to get lift service. That ride is 2.5 times more expensive, $74 versus $28 bus pass. On months I do not buy a bus pass, I've spent $7.50 a day on three rides per day. Back in the day, folks who live in the Cedar Hills area got taxi service when they needed to go to the store since they were furnished by Trimet instead of bus rides. It wasn't cost effective to run a bus in that area. I'd be happy to take taxi service to the store and to a doctor appointment. And two, I'd like you to give all the students student passes for free. I would like it funded permanently. Grandma and Grandpa want the kids to get to the schools with free bus passes. We want to make sure that they don't have another reason to drop out of school. Thank you for your time. I am with Gresham Housing for the People.
I don't know if we're going to be able to keep
but BRU and Community Alliance of Tenants.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to digress.
Good morning.
They have had, quote, free bus passes for students by hook or crook for years. All right? And the one statistic that no one bothers to really look at, which is the proof of the pudding, is that attendance is dismal. Playing hooky is way up, and graduation is way down, and so having a bus pass does not ensure that these people are going to show up to hear anything that might educate them.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That is true, isn't it?
Using this as to ensure that they don't drop out has not seemed to be the end all be all. I'm not sure that it's 100%, but it hasn't cured it. Let alone that the actual cost to Trimet really is, I bet you, is nothing more than an accounting trick. Do you really think that they're giving this Portland Public Schools a check for $650,000 to go buy passes?
Right.
And if they are, it's coming right back to them. The buses aren't really full anyway, so they're essentially giving out passes that, the cost is in the past. They're not taking up any space because ridership, there's plenty of space most of the time.
Yes, right. That's interesting. I bet you're right. I bet you it is an accounting trick.
and so they have to write it off on the books and show it on the books that, yes, we are real generous. We gave $650,000 worth of passes. I doubt if it was anything that you could put it, any real money that you could actually put in a vending machine.
I think you're right about that.
Thank you for your
I
time.
didn't even
My name's
think of
Hui
that,
Long.
but
I'm the Executive Director of Opal Environmental Justice Oregon. We build power for
I'm sorry
environmental
about
justice
your
and
video
civil rights in our
stream,
communities.
Neil.
One of the ways we build power is by organizing youth of color through our Youth Environmental Justice Alliance and transit-dependent low-income communities of color through our Bus Riders Unite. You may have heard of us. The Youth Environmental Justice Alliance has assembled a proposal for your consideration.
Who is this talking?
Going through the
He's from Opal.
Oh,
Opal
advisory committee for how the resources from House Bill 2017 will be allocated. We know approximately $49 million in new revenue will come to Trimet Service District in 2019, covering Clackamas, Multnomah, and Washington counties. $5 million of these funds are currently unallocated. This presents an opportunity to reshape the current Youth Pass program model and create a precedent for a long-term sustainable Youth Pass program that is fully funded for high school youth age in the Trimet Service District. We propose, along with our youth, to allocate at least $5 million to student transportation within House Bill 2017. This funding creates a pathway to fully fund Youth Pass at school districts that have already received access to the program, as well as to expand Youth Pass transit to more high schools within the Trimet Service District. In evaluating how House Bill 2017 funding should be allocated, it's imperative to apply an equity lens and respond to the needs of transit-dependent communities. Expanding and strengthening access to the Youth Pass benefits will increase the accessibility of more individuals to rides and have the potential to create a population of lifelong transit riders. A Youth Pass program funded through House Bill 2017 addresses current geographic inequities in assessing the Youth Pass program. We know David Douglas and Park Rose was able to expand the program, and because the payroll wage tax funding stream provided by House Bill 2017 continued to grow in the coming years as more wage earners join the workforce across the region, creating a more sustainable source of funding for the Youth Pass program. So we are requesting $5 million in addition to the 1% set aside for student transportation to put towards innovative Youth Pass transit program housed within Trimet. I know some conversations are already moving, and I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of that background. We have a potential to provide free transit access to our youth. These funds were creating a fair relief program that builds on the current Youth Pass model, and this is an opportunity to be bold and innovative to make transit free for youth throughout the Trimet Service District, to think regionally about how to increase ridership, cultivate the next generation of transit riders, and get cars off the roads, carbon out of the air, and youth out of their houses into schools, jobs, community centers, and opportunities. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm for the Youth Pass. Personally, I think transit should be free. I think it should be free for everybody. Instead of a $3 billion project to build a light rail line that they don't really need, they should make transit free for the next decade, because that's the same amount of money that they're talking about here. But we don't make the decisions.
Oh.
I mean, I am sure I couldn't see the board's face while he was delivering the voluminous amount of statistics, but all I can assume is that where he works, he's probably not drug tested, because it's a pipe dream.
Yeah, they're not going to get it to him.
That he's going to get $5 million.
Yeah, I doubt it. You never know, but it's highly doubtful. Yeah,
and to cultivate the next group and get cars off the road. Well, we've got as the what I call Tiger Lady has testified to, that hasn't happened over 30 years.
Right. Yeah, he's just using the buzzwords. That's all that was. But I think I would support it. I mean, he's talking about the HR 2017 bill there that he wants the money. And I was wondering, why do they only give the schools 1% of that? That does seem kind of shortchange to the schools there. I mean, out of the 100% of the funds, the $3 or $4 billion, they're going to give 1% to schools. That doesn't seem quite fair, but...
I mean, this bill is crafted. I mean, Trimet had to give up, quote, 10%.
Yeah.
And out of that 10%, if you recall from the last meeting, they're getting $4.5 million to quote administer the 10%.
Yeah, right.
and then on top of it, all the generous reduction in fares for low-income fares, they're getting part of that back via those people getting it who are getting taxed out of their paycheck.
Right, they're not getting free passes either. They're getting a reduced fare.
In the end result, there, as we've discussed numerous times, there is no reduction in fare evasion, which there was a current article in the Oregonian via a study from PSU. Quote, 16.2% at the moment, and the PSU study noted that there was no, I repeat, no racial profiling by the fare people doing the fare enforcement, and I'll guarantee you, 16.2% is not the real number, because once Fare Inspectors Board, there's a mass exodus. And I could tell you, years ago, I would warn people.
Yeah, I did.
And I would say, I would make the announcement, fair warning, they're going to be at the next platform. If you don't believe me, that's fine. I'm not going to pay your ticket. And that would be at 60th, and I knew they were at 82nd. I had one day, when I made that announcement at 60th, over 3/4 of my train during rush hour emptied.
Well, good on you for doing that.
You think everyone moved to 60th Avenue. And, by the way, when they pulled into 82nd, every fare inspector and policeman still had 7 people to handle. So they couldn't have handled the hundreds that got off at the stop anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't deprive them.
No. I used to do that too. I was really on the side of the riders, because I know that the riders that are evading the fare are at the bottom strata of the economic ladder. I know who they are. Okay, it's not a racial thing. It's basically money. It's a money thing. You know, they don't want.
It's economic, as the woman who first testified here. Yeah. It's economic for her.
Right. It's economics. It's not race. I mean, there are some racist people that are doing the job, but that's not the majority. And I never believed that the institution Trimet was racist, because I know better. I know they're not racist. I spent 15 years there.
Who gets the written testimony?
Thank you both. Well, that's all that we have for those signed up.
Wow, that's
anybody
it.
That
nobody
to testify at this one time?
What's that?
You know what really surprises me?
What's that?
All right. Seeing no further people wishing.
Where's the union here to testify?
Yeah, they should be there every meeting. I've said that.
Every meeting.
Yeah. Every meeting.
Prepared to have, they have 45 minutes. There's only 6 minutes used up.
Yeah.
The union should have prepared statements for people in 3-minute blocks to testify.
That's right. I agree. I'm very disappointed if the union doesn't do that.
Prepared, not off the cuff.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. They should be in there every meeting. They really should be.
I mean, it's a chance to raise the flag. By the way, you know who I've missed seeing over the last 3 or 4 meetings?
Who's that?
David Bouchard.
Oh, yeah. He's very effective.
And yeah. I don't know where he's gone to.
He got a job. They gave him a job. Some I forgot who it was, but one of they got him a job. They knew he was trouble for them, so they figured out a place to put him into the structure, which is what they love to do. If they get a real effective dissident, they'll try to recruit you into their little structure. And he got a job somewhere in I don't remember offhand, but it's in one of the institutional structures that he's actually employed. So now he can't go because yeah. I mean, he was really good too. He was hard, yeah.
Quote, what we would call a job kidnapping.
Yeah, right. I mean, he was really effective, incredibly effective.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I agree.
And he came prepared.
Right.
And,
yeah, I mean, a blind man such as himself, a good speaker, could really speak from experience, and he's one of those speakers that you can't ignore, you know what I mean? Every now and then somebody will come along that you just can't ignore them. They're just too good, and he was one of them. So, of course, they gave him a job.
Comment will close.
So, David, if you're listening, I miss you.
Yeah.
The public forum at this point, and now we'll officially open the August business meeting of the Trimet Board of Directors.
So what's she doing there? She's calling up a board member or something?
She looks like we're going to get a PowerPoint.
Good morning, Bruce.
Oh, Bruce.
Good morning.
Bruce is on the phone.
I am woefully filling your seat today, and hopefully we'll get through it again without any big major mistakes. Although I have been taking notes for the last 6 years on how you do this stuff. So with that, we'll start with the board reports.
Yes,
and actually, I will give the first board report. You guys are probably going to be tired of me when we're all done. Finance and Audit Committee. We had the Finance and Audit Committee before this meeting this morning, and we looked at a couple of different key items. First and foremost was the transit asset management plan. So how do we make sure that we're keeping all of our assets in good repair? So the state of good repair is the kind of the nomenclature that we place upon the process of ensuring everything from light rail to our buses to our infrastructure stays up to date and in good repair. And so that was there. We had a conversation on that and looking at some of the funding levels as we go forward and how that's going to fit.
Well, the state of the equipment is not in good repair. As you know, I listened to the actual operation via the scanner, and it's not in good repair. Okay, the equipment is the transit buses and trains are not in good repair.
Not only
budget.
that, the TriMet forums for the operators are complaining that they're getting buses when they go out to leave in the morning to start the route that are still filthy.
Yeah.
The seats.
No, there's all kinds of problems. I mean, I hear it all day. I hear it all day long. I mean,
and the current one is on the trains. They have installed new seats in the Type 5s, thinking that would cure the problem, which has now created a whole new series of problems.
Oh God!
Which is it's just phenomenal. I could go in for an hour on it, but the real key on that, what I want to bring up, is that the company has issued a decree that they're no longer interested, once you have filed a report for report of injury.
Oh, I see.
Stop filing them. We already know about it. And by the way, we're not going to pay you any longer the 45 minutes because that we don't consider a report ROI, and you don't need to fill out an asset report, quote, which we would. And so what they're trying to do is curtail a paper trail.
Yeah, that's just horrible, isn't it?
And which I have pointed out online, which if you ever go ahead and proceed with a workers' comp case, and you finally get a hearing after 3 years like I did, the workers' comp judge is going to say, well, I see here that you haven't filed a report of injury for the last 7 months. You must be cured. What are we doing here?
Yeah. Well, they're anti-worker when it comes to this. It's well known that they're not going to pay.
If you're really injured, they want you to file one. But I mean, if your foot is now no longer attached, they can't hide that. But they're distinguishing injury from discomfort.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right. I hear that. Yeah. And then if you are injured, they will fight you when you try to get your work comp.
Yeah.
Yeah, they won't give it to you unless you're. It's like you've been smashed over the. Maybe the inspector that just got beat up will get his work comp without a problem, since obviously it was.
Well, I'm going to hopefully be in touch with him. Here's my concern: is that they're probably going to give him, after they review, to make sure that he didn't assault the person who assaulted him.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Right.
There's one or two, I think one operator and one supervisor who's been on administrative leave while they're determining whether they use too much force in defending themselves.
This is a national thing, by the way. I see examples of this all around the country.
And so the real point for this, for anyone who's injured, is they will do a workers' comp and acknowledge it. By the way, you only get 65% of your pay.
Oh, I thought it was 90%.
I think it's nowhere near 90%.
I thought it was 90%.
Whatever percentage it ain't, it's not 100.
Right.
And that does not include overtime that a lot of these people are doing.
Right, I know that.
So if you signed a 10-hour run, you're only going to get paid 8.
Right, and a percentage of the 8. Yeah, you're not even going to get
a percentage of the 8. So, but the other problem, and what a lot of these people who go ahead and sign off, is that the gentleman, the person that injured his elbows, got both of them broken, okay? It will heal. But 10 or 15 years from now, when that injury is going to have an impact on his life.
That's right.
If you signed off or you didn't fight for your rights, saying, I got a potential injury or repercussions to my lifestyle come facing me, and I got 3 doctors to prove it. Of course, Trimet hires 6 doctors who you don't really actually have to show up to the exam because they already know what they're going to write.
That's the truth.
By the way, there is one firm that Trimet uses who, for medical purposes, they send workers. Guess what the name of the firm is?
What?
Impartial.
I think I saw that somewhere.
I mean, if there is a misnomer.
Yeah, American government is very good for that, calling themselves.
I suggest that they change their name to Predetermined.
Over the years,
save you gas because we already got the report written.
Yeah.
We had great and robust discussion in regards to that. We discussed, similar to what was just referenced here, HB 2017, and looking at some of the electrification of our fleet, and that's going to be kind of a bunch of give and take as we look at the path forward in regards to investments in key assets and potentially the longevity and the life expectancy of some of those assets. So that I know that's going to be in front of the HB 2017 committee, and some of the things and give and take that's going to need to occur there. And so we got a little bit of initial insight in some of those dollars and numbers. And lastly, we reviewed kind of an OPEB, which is other public employment benefits, OPEB, and our requirements there in regards to funding and funding levels. So we got a brief update on that and some of the changes in actuarial list and all the information that goes into that. So those are the 3 major areas that we looked at in the Finance and Audit Committee this morning. Any questions from the board members? Dr. Simmons actually was in there, and she was in attendance, and Bruce is usually at that meeting also, but he's out today and joining us by phone for this meeting. But any questions? All right, hearing none.
By
Next
the
up,
way, a couple years ago, when they were discussing the actuarial obligations of Trimet to its retirees, the union did have their own actuary sitting there taking notes.
Yeah.
And they had 6 people lined up. Trimet did, reassuring that everything was just fine. And
well, they just
without seeing what actually went on in the testimony, and no chance for anyone to counter what he just said.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Just take his word that everything was just good.
Yeah, well, that's how this whole procedure is. It's all that's the entire process. Is they tell you how great everything is, and nobody gets to say otherwise.
We've got Kathy that's coming to us with the impact.
Good morning, everybody. So
here's our hero.
I have a little bit of a report to share on MPAC, which stands for Metro's Policy Advisory Committee, which I sit on behalf of Trimet. So at the last board report, we talked about, I had mentioned the urban growth boundary and how the expansion of that boundary by the cities that came forward with proposals, that is still in discussion. So in terms of the timeline, MPAC didn't make any actions at our last meeting. In fact, we are, in terms of the timeline around the urban growth management decision and community engagement, we are in the summer months where MPAC is continuing to get feedback from community and city and stakeholders, and we hope to make a decision with Metro Council by fall of 2018, and that is slated for, I believe, in early December. So in September 20th and 27th, there's going to be continued public comments around UGB expansions, and we will continue to get feedback on these proposals.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I didn't get
Don't die on me here.
No, I'm trying not to, but I am choking. Let's go back a bit.
In fact, we are, in terms of the timeline around the urban growth management decision and community engagement, we are in the summer months where MPAC is continuing to get feedback from community and city and stakeholders, and we hope to make a decision with Metro Council by fall of 2018, and that is slated for, I believe, in early December. So in September 20th and 27th, there's going to be continued public comments around UGB expansions, and we will continue to get feedback and weigh in on these proposals.
Yeah, I don't know much about urban growth boundary stuff. Do you know much about it?
All I know is that it's developers versus people.
Yeah, right. It's tax base, expanding tax base, right?
And on the other hand, people who want more infill, higher density, like you have along, which Trimet has promoted and is coming to full tuition along Interstate Avenue.
Right.
Yeah,
In terms of the transit lens, which is really where Trimet comes into this, I did take a couple of notes. So City of Hillsborough, and there are other folks who are very much interested in expansion of transit services to the newly added areas within the urban growth boundary. And we have listened to some of the concerns from these cities as they're growing and expanding in terms of where some of the greatest needs might be around transportation and services. So as many of you know, House Bill 2017 will provide additional funding to look at what are some of those areas. And I just want to say that as Trimet, we are considering where those expansion areas might be. We offered an example at the last board meeting, at the last MPAC meeting. Sorry, I keep confusing the two. At the last MPAC meeting, where we said we're going to continue listening to recommendations brought forward by community, and that we are working to expand shuttle services, for example, out in places like Happy Valley, and that might be a good model to use for other areas as well. So we're definitely hearing some of the feedback and concern from some of the cities, and we hope that some of the other committees that Trimet is a part of can also listen to that feedback. But that is the full content of that meeting from last month.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Way.
Very nice. Thank you,
Director Way, in regards to impact.
Yeah, if you
I can
recall
also
from the
name some of
last
the
meeting,
specific stops.
It's taken. Someone is looking for a bus route, remember? And the guy says, well, we're still studying it. We're in year 4.
Yeah, right.
And we got another 2 years. So,
Exactly.
It's 6 years before don't go out there waiting for a bus unless you're fully prepared survivalist, that you got a tent, food, and can wait 6 years for it to show up.
Check.
That City of Hillsborough mentioned, but if folks would like more information, there are also the full meetings that are open for the public to read.
They're open but not recorded.
Right, we can't sit down and watch it like what we're
Hearing
doing
no
here.
questions from the board, I will now turn to our General Manager for the monthly report, Doug.
All right, this is my favorite
Thank you,
part.
Mr. Vice President, members of the board, and welcome to Bruce on the phone. We only met a couple weeks ago, so my report to you today is actually relatively brief. A couple things. The first one is I just wanted to note that you have in your package that the administrative and finance report for the prior year, and sometimes when we're so busy, this organization is moving ahead, sometimes we forget to stop and take a photograph of what we did behind us. And so I encourage, if you haven't, to have a look at that, because the impact of many of these things that you see in front of you is transformative in many fronts.
Like what?
And it's just, it was a chance for me to pause and just really thank our own team, our staff,
Here we
our
go.
contractors, an outstanding service for this region.
Here we go.
Always have things to work on and improve, but sometimes looking over your shoulder.
You rarely hear him or any of these managers or the board themselves. You would not know that there were actually rank and file people who have to drive the bus, operate the train, maintain the equipment. I mean, if it wasn't for these managers in this structure, my God.
This is an aristocracy. This is part of
nothing would roll without them.
Yeah, this is what government does. It creates an aristocracy above the people that actually do the work, and that's what this is.
My idea is every month we get rid of 3 managers.
Absolutely.
And we see whether life and the buses and the trains and everything still operate.
Yeah, as I always said, if this guy didn't come to work, nobody would notice. If the bus or train driver doesn't show up, people will notice. These people are expendable. These are basically parasites. That's literally how I look at it.
I applied for that job, and
what? For executive?
I asked. I said, I am willing to make the phone calls to every single garage and every yard. Did the buses go out? Did the trains go out? Every morning, and then call in at midnight if they come back. I said, you don't need to give me an office, so you don't have to have, the expense of anyone coming in vacuuming or emptying my garbage cans. And I won't wear out the chair in the office because I won't be there. and I'll make that phone call by myself, and I'll even do it on my vacation, which is what I think he gets about 12 weeks a year.
Yeah, something like that. Something outrageous, yeah. But he won't take the vacation. You see, they take that in cash when they leave. That's one of their scams, these executives. They call it unused vacation. They can cash it out when they leave. That's what McFarland did. He got a couple $100,000 cash out when he left. Unused vacation, they call it.
Or even for a brief moment, sometimes is worth doing. And that's what even though it's administrative in nature, sometimes I just think it's important to have a look at. So do encourage you to have a look.
I really do wonder why McFarland liked this guy so much. I mean, this guy was handpicked by McFarland to take over. So I really do wonder what their history is together. There's some kind of a hidden history there that we don't know about. Because he's such an unlikely general manager for this agency. He's not even an American, so, I mean, I wonder what the history is there between him and McFarland. Because there's something there. He wouldn't be here at all if it wasn't for McFarland.
Is that available online for the public to see? Because it's an impressive doc.
Oh, wait,
I think it is.
What document? What is it?
Okay.
What document?
Our council and the audience said yes, so it sounds like we're all aligned here. So it looks like we're on our way.
Document is it?
Okay. The two items to give you a quick update on would be low-income fare initiative. How are we doing so far, coming out of the gate? And secondly, I'll try and give you an overview on Trimet's contract. How we contract here in the organization, based on a couple of questions that board members had asked previously. First, low-income fare. As many of you know, we successfully launched the low-income fare program, meeting our commitment to the region and to the board and to ourselves at the beginning of July. It's often running very well, and I really want to call out and thank particularly John Gardner and his team and Eric Van Hagen. It really takes a village behind the scenes, which below the iceberg many people don't understand.
A village of managers.
They really deserve a lot of credit.
You would be curious if you added up the salaries and the time all these managers spent to hand out, quote, discount fares. They could give it, you could give half of it away as free.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right about that. I'm sure you're right.
Playing out. Because first impressions
But
are
then
last.
again, you would be short, probably 6 managers.
Yeah, man, what would we do without them?
And I think the way we've come out so far is there's always adjustments to make when you put a new product in place, and that's what we're doing here. But all in all, it's coming along very, very nicely. To date, we have over 1,500 participants now already.
Oh, by the way, this was debunked by, I forgot who it was, but, there's 250,000 people that are low income in the region, and that's not including the 200% above the poverty line. So the fact that he has 1,500 is like nothing. It's nothing. It's not a success. It's a tiny little amount of people compared to how many people could use this.
Signed up.
The only solution is obvious. And you know what that is?
What?
More managers.
I'm sure you're right.
The honored citizen fare due to the low income level. We think this is terrific. And we also have 10 eligibility screening locations on board now. That's a lot more than we originally thought we would need. We said, let's go that extra step to make it accessible, the ports of entry, if you will, to the conversation. So we're quite pleased with that. We're also monitoring the overall process. I think anytime you offer a new product, as I've suggested, there are always game time adjustments. So we need to be listening to what some of those adjustments will be. Don't know what they are yet, but just to let you know that and you or any of the others have feedback for us, we're sure welcoming of adjustments that may need to be made as we go forward on this long-term program. We are anticipating as many as 45,000 people could be qualified and eligible for this program. So this is part of the trajectory of where...
That's wrong. It's actually 200,000.
We're just at the start of this. If we get to 45,000, I think it's just going to be nothing but a resounding success, and how we learn from other places in Seattle and others to what adjustments we can make, and hopefully other cities can learn from us as well. So I'll continue to give you updates, but coming out of the gate, we're pretty pleased, and I think the team should be proud of what they've been able to achieve in actual results and receptivity to the community. So thank you. The second of two topics to cover with you this morning is just really around giving you an overview of public contracting. As our board of directors,
wow, well, this is interesting. Let's hear
many of the contracts that come your way to put into service on the streets. But part of this is also, how do we go about procuring some of these contracts, particularly some of our larger capital projects. So this morning I wanted to do a quick primer for you on how we actually approach it, answer any questions the board may have, and if there's any follow-up actions, we'll be happy to undertake them. So I'd like to call up Steve Witter, if he is here. Lance Ertz.
Well, this is rather interesting that they're doing this, because I've been pounding on them about this process for a long time. And so
and the former board member Dr. Bethel.
Yeah, he brought it up too.
He's been the only one in recent history who has voted against some of these contracts.
Right, that's true. Absolutely right.
And I know if John Gardner is available, if three others could come up, and they're going to walk you through a primer.
We're going to get John Gardner later, but we really got some dirt on John here coming up somewhere in this board meeting. But we're not in this part, I don't think.
So I'm going to start. I'm Lance Ertz, Director of Real Property, although that title is maybe a little misleading why I'm up here talking about contracts, but I'm also in-house counsel here and spend a lot of time working in the contracting world. So
they should all get up and they should give their name and how much they get paid.
I'm going to give a very, very brief overview of public contracting, just kind of the structure, the laws and the rules of public contracting. And public contracting is very, very rule-driven. So kind of the most important part of the public contracting rules.
Yeah, very rule-driven, right. Well, yeah, sure.
Oh, yes. There we go. Sorry about that. Is the Oregon Revised Statutes, and there are about 100 pages that cover public contracting in those three sections listed up there. So there's 279A, 279B, and 279C are the public contracting statutes. 279A is kind of the overarching rules that apply to all contracts. 279B applies to basically general goods and services type contracts, and 279C is construction contracts and
yeah, and we all know that there's the rules and regulations, and then there's the real world. Okay, let's not forget that. He's going to show us the rules and regulations, but we're not going to actually see the real world here.
Architect and engineer and things like that. But again, lots of detail and lots of structure on how you procure each of these types of contracts in those statutes. And I'm, again, not going to really get into much detail on those, but then under that, there's the Trimet contracting rules. So the statutes, in some cases, direct agencies to adopt their own public contracting rules, which we've done. And in some cases, they add more detail to what the statute requires. In some cases, they just kind of restate what the statute requires. But Trimet has.
Okay, so let's just stop there. They add more rules and more detail. So essentially, what he's saying is, we can write it to the point of
where we want it.
Where, the only one qualifying is the contractor we want.
Right. And I was just going to say, he's going to show us all of this, and then I was going to comment. So somehow Stacy and Whitbeck gets all the contracts with all of these rules and laws and all. Somehow it's always Stacy and Whitbeck and CMH2 Hill that gets all the contracts, even though they have all these rules.
The third kind of level is the TriMet Contract Review Board rules, and this is similar to the TriMet contracting rules, but sometimes you, as the board of directors, sit as the TriMet Contract Review Board. And the most obvious and common example of that is exemptions from low bid. I think you're going to see a few of those today. You're actually sitting as the Contract Review Board, not the board of directors, but it's a subtle distinction. And then the last kind of overriding rule-based requirement is kind of the FTA rules. And that only applies to federally funded contracts, but we have quite a few of those. And the FTA rules are generally fairly consistent with the Oregon Revised Statutes, so it's not generally an issue, but there is I don't know how thick this is, but this is the FTA's third-party contracting guidance, so another couple hundred pages of guidance on how to conduct your procurements. So just a real quick overview of procurement methods. This is, again, fairly basic stuff, but there's really two methods generally: invitation to bid, which is where you go based on lowest price, and really that's all you can look at is lowest price. And as long as the bid is responsive and the bidder is responsible, you have to award the contract. And so the definition of those two things: responsiveness deals with whether the bid itself complies with all the requirements of the bid process and the law, and responsibility lets the agency take a little bit of a look at the contractor's skill and experience, not a very deep look, to see if they're qualified to perform the work. It's very, very rare that we would disqualify someone based on responsibility, but those are really the two things you look at on an invitation to bid. But generally, the lowest price gets the contract. The other procurement method that we use quite a bit of is the request for proposal process. And in that process, you can look both at the price and at the qualifications of the proposers and the contractor. So you have a selection committee that reviews the proposal.
And that's the one they like to use the most, because at times they can land up saying, well, it wasn't the lowest price, but, we've worked with them so many times.
Right.
And
that's right. That's the preferred TriMet way to do things.
Past experience. You can look at DBE plan and things like that in that contracting process. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is kind of the types of contracts. Again, there's four general types. There's goods and services contracts, which are your basic contracts, not construction, not architect and engineer or personal services. You can do those at the discretion of the agency, either through an invitation to bid or an RFP process. A construction contract is also called a public improvement contract in the statutes. And the state of Oregon has a preference for invitation to bid in that case, which is why we have to do an exemption if we want to do an RFP process for a construction contract. We have to explain why the RFP process is more favorable to the agency than a low bid process would be. So again, I think you're going to see two or three of those today where we're talking about that. We have to do findings, we do a public hearing, and public has a chance to come and comment on our findings and our opinion that the RFP process is more favorable than the low bid process.
When was the last time you heard of a public hearing on these RFP? I don't remember hearing it ever. Have you? I don't remember hearing anything about that.
And this process, as we have seen over the years, don't worry if you foul up bidding, we can always bail you out.
Exactly.